On today's 14th episode of the 2Close2Call podcast, Pags and I have a great conversation for you. Today we start out with our favorite athletes to wear number 14. I give you a baseball legend, and Pags continues his trend of outside-of-the-box thinking and gives you a relevant answer to Philadelphia sports. We then transition into the Sixers and their last two games where they took care of business against the Nuggets and the Lakers. We talk about how this new look lineup is integrating itself and ultimately if the Sixers are now the favorites in the East or if they do need to make one more move to advance above the Celtics, Raptors, and Bucks. After discussing the Sixers, we talk about the Flyers, who are 9-0-1 in their last 10 games. Unfortunately, by the time this episode aired, they did lose to Pittsburgh and are now 8 points out of a playoff spot with the same amount of games played as Pittsburgh. However, they're still mathematically in it and have some time to make up ground. Once we wrap up our talk on Philadelphia sports, we get into the Alliance, the new football league that made its debut this past weekend. We talk about the 4 games that were played and if we think this league has lasting ability or if it's going to flare out such as previous leagues like the XFL. After we discuss the games, we then get into a segment where we pick the winners of each game, not based on the play on the field, but based on their nicknames and their uniforms. We're going to put together a little bit of a bracket here to ultimately pick our favorite uniform in the Alliance, and we want to get you, the listener's point of view as well. However, today's episode is literally not possible. I know I say that every episode, but it is not possible without our sponsor, The Ram King. Visit www.theramking.com for all your t-shirt needs. If you guys out there know any teachers or anybody who's working in a corporate office, please reach out to them and let them know, hey, the next time you guys need t-shirts for any sort of event you're putting together, please visit www.theramking.com, type in your information, put the 2Close2Call cast in where you heard about the Ram King, and get yourselves the friends and families discount. Save yourself a little bit of money. We appreciate everything you guys are doing out there for us as well as the Ram King. Now, let's get into today's episode.
Coach, you were 5-79 last year. Why the playoff talk?
Well, we made a couple of key trades, and we got the funk.
Oh, glory be, the funk's on me, Bobble.
Keep that funk alive. Keep that funk alive.
Well, it's 1975, and we just be keeping the funk alive. So what the?
Aloha and hello and welcome to the 14th episode of the 2Close2Call podcast. As always, I am one of your co-hosts, Miho, here with my boy Pags. Pags is actually back today and joining us for the episode. So thank you, Pags. Welcome back here, friend.
Hey, Kev. It's good to be back. Life got in the way over the weekend, but thanks for doing that interview. It was freaking awesome. Ojo, unbelievable. I had high expectations coming into that interview, and it surpassed everything. The shit that they go through over there, it's a crazy lifestyle out there, man.
Yeah, how about getting a lit flare thrown at you as you're trying to shoot a free throw?
That's wild. That was so crazy. And I had no idea he was in a freaking commercial with Steph Curry. That is insane.
Dude, when I asked him, I was like, oh, which one? And he sent it to me. I remembered those commercials immediately. And I was like, how the fuck did I not recognize you? He was like, he started laughing. But, man, when I brought up the acting class, me and him literally did a scene together in acting. And he just fucking lost it because he forgot all about it. And I was like, using it to your advantage. I love it.
Acting class. Those were the best classes in college. Those were the classes I knew I was going to get an A.
4 credit A, baby. Up that GPA.
So we're rolling in. We got our 14th episode. Had a couple emergency podcasts last week. We're going to hit it off with our number 14s. Who do you got?
Oh, man. So locally here around Philly, there is literally no number 14s. Is yours a Philly 14?
Oh, you know it is.
Oh, baby, even better, because I didn't find any, so I'm looking forward to that. But my number 14, since I expanded the search, was actually someone from the Big Red Machine in the 70s, arguably the greatest hitter of all time, Mr. Pete Rose.
Oh, man. man, that's a hot topic.
I know that's a controversial name to bring up there, Pag. So, hey, when you hear that name in the Hall of Fame, what are your first thoughts?
I think he needs to be in.
Well, you're a steroid guy, so you're fucking putting everybody in. You don't give a shit.
Bro, if they go out there, they ball in the sport that they played in, they deserve to be recognized as one of the best players out there. Edgar Martinez deserves to be in the Hall of Fame over Pete Rose. Come on.
Edgar wasn't betting on games and possibly losing them on purpose either. Like, how are you going to let somebody who is maybe losing games on purpose into the fucking Hall of Fame, your shrine of the best? Yeah, that guy was fucking amazing. But, yeah, he lost like 80 games to win a shit ton of money. So don't do that.
Yeah, well, Ray Lewis killed a person or helped kill a person, and he's in the Hall of Fame.
Allegedly. Right, I'm with you. I think he deserves to be in, or at the very least, not banned from all of baseball. Like, let him fucking be a commentator. Let him in the stadium. I mean, they literally won't even recognize him. They did, like, the 50 best ball players, I think it was, at one time, and it was, like, the first time he was allowed in a stadium in, like, 20 years.
He was on the pregame shows for the playoffs the last couple of years, right?
Yeah, so they've started to loosen up. The new commissioner, Robert Manfred, I believe his name is, over Bud Selig, has allowed a little bit more leniency, dude. And that's, honestly, as 2019 comes, like you mentioned, the steroid users are getting a little more lenient. Us millennials starting to get into the workforce are like, dude, everybody was doing it, man. We don't give a fuck.
Exactly. You have no idea. People could have been betting on games. He just got fucking caught. And it is
right.
what it is.
It ain't cheating until you get caught, baby.
And I guess he deserves everything he gets because he did get caught. But I'm a firm believer that I think your performance on the field is separate from outside of the field.
All right, I can live with that. I respect it. So, but you said you had a Philadelphia 14. I'm excited to hear this now since I came up with nothing.
The only reason I know this 14, and he's relevant now, he's not known for his number, Doug Peterson.
What?
Number 14. Philadelphia Eagle. The little standstill before McNabb came in. The only reason I know is because I saw a guy at a game with an A.J. Feely jersey on, and he taped over it and put Peterson.
Yeah, for some reason, when I think Peterson,
14.
I see the number 9, but...
No.
Yeah, wow, that's a good one, I guess. Man, holy shit.
Dougie P.
Look at you digging deep there.
First ever coach to bring us a Super Bowl. I absolutely hated that he was going to be our coach. I remember I was at my honeymoon. I didn't have any service. Once I landed in JFK, I just see text messages from you and my dad like, they fucking hired Doug Peterson. Are you kidding me? What are we doing here? We're going back to the old days of Andy Reid.
Emotional intelligence.
Yeah, so hopefully we see him in another Super Bowl sometime soon. But speaking of Super Bowls, did you see Tony Romo, the star of this past Super Bowl, his shot at Pebble Beach?
Pro-Am this weekend, dude. Are you talking about the one after the fucking drive he hit into the grandstand?
Oh, dude, that's unbelievable. That guy is just winning life right now.
Oh, right. I've seen one professional do it before, and I can't remember who it was, but I was like, Tony's going to go up there and freaking hit that. I didn't think he was going to put it 4 feet past the pin and spin it back to fucking 2 feet. I was like, is there anything you're not good at? You're an asshole.
Well, I was thinking of, like, Spieth's shot at the British Open 2 years ago where he was, like, past the stands, and he just hit a hook rolling up right up to the green. It was unbelievable. And then I see Tony do this, and I'm like, Tony, you're just killing it. He's crazy, man. Did you see the weather out there? Fucking crazy.
Have you ever experienced hail in your life?
Maybe little pebbles of it, but nothing to that stand.
Dude, down in Texas, they get hailstorms and not snow. It's legitimately a thing where baseball size, golf ball size, tennis ball, even softball size hail sometimes fucking falls from the sky.
Sounds like an insurance company's nightmare.
Oh my god, dude, it's literally its own claim, whatever the hell you call it. But it's a thing, dude, where
sell it. We have that here, and it's never really used.
Yeah, dude,
here.
but like cars there, broken windows, like dented cars. It's honestly one of those things that when you don't live there and you move there and you're like, wait, what the fuck? You don't have snow or anything, but we need hail insurance? Okay.
Another thing I took from this, I had no idea. Do you know that Clint Eastwood is the mayor of Pebble Beach area for the last 30 years?
Like legitimately the mayor, or like he knows everybody?
No, he's the mayor. 30 years ago, Clint Eastwood was elected mayor of Carmel, California.
That's amazing.
I'm like, why the hell is he getting in here? And my father-in-law goes, he's the mayor. And I
Oh,
was like,
dude, there's
"No
one meme of
fucking
him
way."
just staring into the distance where I'm like, yes, that's amazing.
Well, speaking of Hollywood,
I don't want to take my pants off.
What? Whoa, whoa.
All right, Ronnie, that's enough. This bitch tried to grab my joint. Language, Ronnie. My language is English. And this motherfucker tried to grab on my hang down.
Got my own hang down to touch, kid.
Hope he has one with a handful of my balls.
the Sixers look like they're freaking headed to play somebody out in California at the end of this year.
Right, man, these first two games here against the Lakers and the Nuggets, Friday's game was a little more contested, which you can assume, you got new pieces. They're trying to show off a little bit. People on the Sixers are trying to get them a little more involved than they probably should. Like, Boban comes into a standing ovation and then goes down and, airballs his first shot. That wasn't a good shot, but I'm like, hell yeah, he was fucking shooting that ball. So it was impressive to see him kind of navigate through that game as a whole to start to finalize some sort of rotation.
Yeah, and it was really appealing to me when 4 minutes to go in the Nuggets game, they're kind of letting the Nuggets hang around, and Brett Brown's like, I'm going to put my starters in.
Yeah,
and
Nuggets are good, though,
minutes,
so, I mean,
yeah,
that's not a surprise for them to hang around.
But then the last 4 minutes, we put our starters back in, and all of a sudden you just see Jimmy Butler getting to the line, making free throws, freaking JJ making a big shot, and B dominating down low with a fadeaway jumper. Their starting five, I would put them against everyone, maybe other than the Warriors. I mean, the Warriors are on a whole nother level, but in the East, man, I don't see anybody stacking up to those five.
Well, that's the thing. You say a whole nother level, but I was watching over the weekend. There's a couple credible basketball minds, such as Doris Burke was on and said, until Boogie Cousins gets up and running in his old self, she would honestly take the Sixers starting five over the Warriors starting five. So it's a conversation which is unbelievable to fucking say that. Because, dude, what was it, 3 years ago, 4 years ago? I saw a tweet of the starting lineup compared to last night. It was fucking comical.
All right, so let's dive into that real quick. Who's guarding who? Sixers, Warriors. Who's guarding Durant?
Oh, man, that's a good question. Let's see here.
Thank you.
Yeah, fuck, dude. Durant, okay. Durant, I'm actually putting Tobias Harris on Durant to start. You got Steph Curry and Klay Thompson for the guards. I'm going to go Ben Simmons and Jimmy Butler, two of our guards there, which leaves Boogie and Draymond. And Draymond's your weaker link, so I'm going to go JJ on Draymond, and that leaves the two bigs, Boogie and Embiid, guarding each other. So like I mentioned, man, definitely I'd want to watch fucking 48 minutes of that. Is that what you have?
I switched it around a little bit here. I put Harris on Thompson, left JJ on Green, and Embiid on Boogie. I put Butler on Curry and Simmons on Durant just for length.
But yeah, that's definitely going to be the question, because we got our two bigs against each other, and then we have our biggest defensive liability in JJ on their worst offensive option in Draymond, and then that leaves kind of the three guards and wings to ultimately determine which matchup is best.
And I think Green probably on their side of the ball probably switches and ends up on maybe Butler or somebody like that, and then Curry ends up on JJ just for their sake. But
Sure.
Obviously switching around here and there. Hey, we're going to see it in a couple of weeks. They're going to play in Philly in, I think, 2 weeks.
That'll be a top ticket for sure. But the main concern after the first game was I saw a statistic where, to your point, our starting five was plus 14, and everybody else in combination was minus 7. So depth and rotation still a concern after the first game.
They're going to need to, like I said before, beef up that bench, and five aren't going to be able to play the entire game. Can't be letting teams back in when you're spelling some of our guys. So do you think there's going to be a move with the buyout market coming up?
Well, there's definitely got to be a move coming after watching these first two games. I mean, they played the Lakers afterwards, but outside of LeBron James, man, the Lakers are a mess. That coaching, LeVar Ball's old man talking shit, they were controlling that entire game. Early, LA was sticking around, but it's just because they were fucking making everything. By the second half, it was 20 points, 25 points, and I fucking turned it off by the fourth quarter. So once they get to top competition like the Nuggets, that's where the bench is ultimately going to matter. And Honestly, one of the things to brag about here is we had a brief conversation on social media with Keith Pompey, who covers the Sixers, and we asked him that exact question on if they add a wing, are they now a favorite to win it? And basically his response was, yes, they're going to add somebody, but the success is ultimately going to be determined on who that is, because there's going to be a couple options, and they're really only going to have one roster spot, maybe two, if they make a move. But this is pretty much the finalized roster outside of one piece.
The shitty thing is the piece they need is probably like a Zaire Smith type, and he's just sitting there rehabbing, and that kind of sucks.
Like I mentioned, dude, in our bold predictions last episode, he's coming back, and we're going to kill it next year.
Love it. All I ask next year is when we draft somebody, can they please play right away and not sit out a year?
No red shirt in the NBA. Oh, man.
It's like the Sixers red shirt. It comes every year, and it's freaking killing me.
Speaking of red shirting, the Flyers trying to pull a red shirt, and thank God they fucking gave up on it after firing the coach and GM. But as we touched on, 8 games in a row, it's now up to a 10-game point streak. They lost one in overtime, but the sole reason, maybe one or two other reasons, but the sole reason has been the goalie, man. Carter Hart is just an alien.
20 years old. He looks like he's been doing this forever. How about the Ducks opening fucking 2 minutes of the game, get a breakaway, and he just freaking glove hands it. It was awesome. I'm like, man, this guy is for real.
Yeah, because if you watch that game, dude, like you just pointed out, the Flyers actually did not play that strong of a game, and they still fucking dominated 6-2, literally because Anaheim's goalie sucked, and Carter Hart was amazing, and we haven't won any of those games in the last 2 years because our goalies sucked too.
No, we're usually on the other end of it, being like, oh, God, we're down 4 goals, and we have to claw back to 4-3, and then we end up losing 5-3, 6-3, and it's been agonizing to watch.
Yeah, man. So we're 6 points out of the last playoff spot, actually behind the Pittsburgh Penguins, who come into town tonight. I know you're hearing this on Tuesday. We're recording Monday night. It's just how it fucking works out there. So we're going to give you a little bit of a preview, even though you're going to know the result by the time you hear this. What do you think tonight, Bags? Hopefully you can redeem yourself based on some of your Super Bowl predictions here.
I'm going to go, and this is totally from the heart. I think we're going to go out and beat the shit out of them. Just beat the piss out of the Penguins. Keep this shit rolling.
Yeah, we're 6 points back of the Pens. Same amount of games played. So if we win tonight in regulation, we'd be 4 points out. But Pittsburgh's always tough, man. They got the goaltending. They got Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin. So it's a rivalry game for both teams. They have not been playing well. We've been playing well in the win-loss column, maybe not on the ice. So it's definitely going to be a close one, man. There's no way it's a blowout. None of these games are ever blowouts.
No, I was saying like 4-2. 3-2, we've been holding down, then we get a little empty netter at the end.
There you go. 4-2. Okay, all right.
You know that place is going to be rocking tonight. The Wells Fargo Center is going to be
You would
rocking.
hope so, at least, man. That was a fucking morgue a month ago, and now the place is completely turned around. But 19 points out of a total of 20 potential will do that for you.
All I was thinking when I was watching the game over the weekend, because you were saying the defense wasn't the greatest, is, God, I hope Kev's bold prediction's correct and we get Carlson or somebody like that to beef up our defensive front next year.
Yeah, so we made a move, actually, over the weekend as well, and it was really the only move internally they could have made to bolster the defense, and they traded garbage for garbage. They traded Dale Weiss and somebody else for Montreal's 2 AHL teams, but it cleared money off the books and a roster spot in the NHL, to which they called up Philip Myers, which was the number 1 defenseman at the AHL level. He was an undrafted kid who's developed into like a top 50 overall prospect, and they called him up. Now, he's not going to play tonight. Obviously, Pittsburgh be a tough one to just fucking throw him in there, but they think he's going to play tomorrow, and there's a potential of either Hag or McDonald coming out of the lineup, and based on usage and time, Hag seems to be the 6th defenseman who may be the odd man out.
Keep these young guys going, and in a couple years, we're going to be Stanley Cup champions.
Right. Finally, this new regime willing to call up the kids and let them play, and Carter Hart's rewarded that.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Hey, before we move on from Philadelphia sports, I wanted to touch on one other thing about the Sixers, something that really irked me.
What's that?
I don't know if it even hit your radar. Do you see this shit with Ben Simmons and Magic Johnson?
Oh, yeah, it came out, over the weekend that Simmons wanted to talk to Johnson about being a taller than average point guard?
No, not talk. He wanted to work out with him and do workouts with him out in L.A., and that shit just rubbed me the wrong way.
Why? If you were a fucking big point guard, wouldn't you want to work out with the greatest big point guard there's ever been?
Logistically, fundamentally, yes. As Ben Simmons, if I'm coming from Ben Simmons, 100%. I want to work out with a guy that did the exact same thing I'm trying to do right now. But as a Sixers fan, as someone that would want to be in the Sixers front office, that shit just throws up red flags left and right. We know that Ben wants to be on LA. He's dating a fucking Kardashian. He's tight with LeBron. He's his younger brother. I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
Yeah, especially coming up here. I know we have, another year or two of team control, but then we're going to have to give him the max contract. So to your point, in the Sixers front office or as a fan of the team, yeah, it's like, fuck that. I'm not letting that happen. I guess when I just first heard the news, I took Ben Simmons' point of view, and I'm like, yeah, duh. Like, we're entrepreneurs in the podcast game, Bags. We want to talk to Pardon My Take. I mean, come on.
Right. Like I said, from the Ben Simmons side, I completely agree with you. That makes nothing but sense. It just makes me feel a little queasy inside. The Sixers could give him a full-on contract, and then it wouldn't fucking surprise me that Magic Johnson be like, yo, cause some fucking shit in there, make him trade you. And then I'm just pissed. Because Ben Simmons, I've always had an iffy feeling about him being in Philadelphia just because it's Embiid's town, and I always felt like too many stars can cause kind of issues because someone's not getting the press, because no one's ever going to get the press Embiid gets. And people freaking love him in this town. And I just don't know if Simmons is going to be able to play second fiddle to that.
It's definitely an interesting storyline to keep an eye on, especially like you mentioned, until they sign him to one of those long-term contracts.
We'll see if this stretch goes into June, and definitely have some playoff basketball, some playoff hockey in Philadelphia. But in the meantime, we got some football.
Humpy, looks like you got a little pain behind those eyes.
Yeah, maybe a little.
There's really only one cure for that.
What's that?
Weed. You got any? Oh. Well, let's go surfing.
Yeah, did you watch any of that shit this weekend?
I was in and out. I watched some of it. I liked some of it. I thought the quarterback play was dog shit. I thought the O-line play was really bad. I thought to myself, hey, I could do that. But on the scheme of thing, it was nice to see football out there again.
Watching some of the pregame, an interesting statistic that they threw out was throughout the entire league, their coaches and front office have a combined over 470 years of NFL experience.
That's crazy. Crazy
Amount of experience. So that right there gives you a little bit of credibility in regards to, okay, hopefully this product won't suck on the field. And honestly, I think that intrigue kind of led to, I read a report that the ratings for Saturday night's game were ridiculous.
They beat out the Rockets Thunder on Saturday night, 2.1 to 2.0.
Yeah, how the hell's that happen? Fucking a huge comeback. Russell Westbrook, Paul George, the reigning MVP, who's scoring 40 a game. Basketball popularity still blowing up. And, oh, look at that. Shitty football still gets more fucking viewership than basketball. It's crazy what this country fiends for football.
When people say the NFL is doomed, I just laugh. This country is just football in any way they can get it. And this is not as gimmicky as the AFL, so I think this is going to tickle the fancy of the football fans because you're getting actual play out there. You're not having the weird fucking 3 linemen, stuff like that. It's actual football. Now, they're going to need to get some better talent in there because some of it, like we said earlier, it is brutal to watch, but it's fun. They're kind of piggybacking off what people are bitching about with the NFL, with the Sky Judge.
Yeah, so I was going to bring up kind of all the differences and let you give your thoughts as you run through them, because you mentioned the NFL losing its popularity, and the first thing that popped into my head was the fucking huge hit on the quarterback where his helmet went flying and there were no flags to be seen. And the two different ways you can kind of view that is, I think everybody's initial reaction was, oh, fuck yeah, that's awesome. It takes me back to the 90s and what football used to be. That's fantastic. We love these huge hits. But then as I was reading, a handful of articles that are spread out there, but there is that, I don't want to say negative outlook, but the outlook of, hey, these guys are playing football. They're still going to get concussions and CTE, which is the hot topic in the NFL, and now they're not even getting fucking paid like NFL guys. So what's the point here? Do we really need more football, more of these fucking barbarians out there banging each other? I guess we'll pause there and get your thoughts, because that's a pretty controversial topic.
I think people want to see that, but like you said, these guys aren't getting compensated the way that NFL players are getting compensated. They're kind of just signing on because they don't have anything else to cling to. And from a personal side of view, if this was an option when I left college, I would 100% like, oh, you're going to pay me $75,000 to go play football? Yeah, I'm in. But do they have the backing? Once people start suing, once people start coming at the safety aspect of this, are they going to be able to handle that? And I just don't know the answer right now. You can have all the football experience you want, but when it comes to the business side of everything, I don't know if this will be able to last.
Yeah, listening again to Bill Poley and what their end business objective is ultimately they're trying to get NFL practice squad players to play in this league after the NFL season, and that would give a business partnership to kind of some of these complications. Maybe the healthcare would be involved because they'd technically be under contract for NFL teams. So those things would be covered, and injuries and issues and things along those lines. So once it gets to that point, it should alleviate some of that concern. But man, I don't know. It was entertaining. And like you brought up earlier, that Sky Judge or the Skybox Judge, when they're playing him or her live, giving their review of the play on the field, dude. I was watching it, but I think they got two of them fucking wrong anyway. But I'm like,
I know.
This is amazing, though. Like, all I was thinking was I would have paid how much money to fucking hear the conversation between the ref and the Skybox Judge on the opening kickoff of the Cowboys-Eagles game.
Oh, God, that freaking...
Well, the guy in the box is like, hey, I don't know which Eagle recovered it, so we got to go with the call on the field, Dallas. And the ref on the field just being like, well, it was like 4 Eagles, and Kruger Hill handed me the ball, so are you sure that we're not going to give this to the Eagles? And the guy just being like, oh, yeah, I mean, there's 4 of them, and I don't know which one it is, so it's got to be Dallas. Like, fuck off, bro. Like, put the pressure on them, put their name out there, let them get fucking drilled by the Philadelphia Twittersphere afterwards.
I'm so mad that you brought that up because I put that out of my mind. I'm on to the Sixers and the Flyers, and you brought that back up, and now I'm angry again.
But like you mentioned, dude,
so
some of these gimmicky leagues, right? Like the XFL, we're old enough now, 30 years old, to remember the original XFL, and yeah, it didn't make it, and it wasn't a football league, but the Skycam and things along those lines that the NFL implemented came from the XFL. We all watched the 30 for 30 and saw some of that shit. So at the very least, if this league doesn't fucking make it, but I get to see the conversation and hear the conversation between the ref and the replay official, totally fucking worth it.
Absolutely. The no TV timeout, so after a freaking kickoff, we don't have to go and watch 2 minutes of commercials before we get the opening drive.
Right? And, I thought about you. What was your reaction when you saw that the onside kick rule is like a 4th and 10 or 4th and 12 from their own territory?
I love it. I think in the NFL, you're going to have to go a little bit more drastic there, make it even tougher. 4th and 10, I mean, any NFL team can get a 4th and 10, I feel like. I guess you look at the percentages, 4th and whatever, and whatever that equates to what the percentages of getting an onside kick were, kind of formulate it like that.
That's a good idea.
I think that would be the best, maybe 4th and 15, 4th and 20, something along those lines. Put it at 25, and hey, if you get it, you get a chance to drive the field and tie the game.
I like it. Honestly, I read that. I laughed out loud because you had brought that up not too long ago, and I was like, oh, shit, Pags actually got one right.
Post-football season 2019, I am getting predictions right, baby.
Well, we'll see, because I want your predictions here. We're going to play ourselves a little bit of a game, Pags. I know I gave you this one ahead of time, so we're both a little bit prepared. What we're actually going to do is run through the teams, the Alliance Football League teams and nicknames and logos and give the listeners which ones we think are better. And we're going to break it down game by game so we can throw it up on our Instagram poll. And that way, if we have a split here, or even if it's we're 2-0, but everybody else thinks we're wrong, we can, move along the bracket and ultimately pick our favorite fucking new logo. How's that sound?
We have different jersey tastes, so I'm interested to see what happens here.
For sure. So Saturday night, you had 2 different games, and Sunday you had 2 games. So let's start Saturday. The nationally televised game was the San Antonio Commanders, led by the only fucking person I know, made a hell of a catch, Greg Ward Jr., who used to be on the Eagles, but they took on the San Diego Fleet, who were coached by former Rams coach, the greatest show on turf, Mike Martz. I guess you watched a little bit of that game, but what'd you think there of the uniforms? Who are you going with?
Oh, that's tough because they're both decent. I'm going to lean towards the San Diego Fleet. I think the ship on the helmet is pretty fucking cool. And I'm a big matted gray helmet kind of guy, and I like the yellow and gray concept. I'm not a huge fan of the maroon with the bright red along with that. So I'm leaning towards the San Diego Fleet.
No, I like that. You mentioned it, right? So I did the one-on-ones here per game, and then I, on the side, decided to do 1 through 8s, and I realized that I'm not a huge fan of either of these uniforms, but first of all, I like how the nicknames, the whole league seem to have made the nicknames kind of local to the location of the team there. So the Fleet, obviously, the big ships out in San Diego, and the Commanders, the old San Antonio, they got the Alamo in the logo, but I actually ended up with the same conclusion that you did. I like the San Diego Fleet, gray, bluish look they're going with the big ship. It almost reminded me of Navy and some of those Army Navy helmets that they've had with the ships on them. So I like San Diego as well. I think we're on the same page.
Oh, there you go. So then we got the other Saturday night game, the Atlanta Legends, which I'm not a big fan of that last name.
Yeah, that was one of the weaker ones for sure.
Yeah. And then the Orlando Apollos.
You get the Apollos.
Apollos, yeah, he's the Greek god. Here's some Greek mythology fucking stats for you. Apollo's weapon was a fucking bow and arrow. What's on the helmet? A man with a bow and arrow. He's the sun god. It's for the sun being down in Florida.
I actually like the Orlando Apollos in this one. After I pulled up the picture again, you're definitely right. It is the Greek god for sun down there, and I did not like the Atlanta Legends, so that one was a whitewash in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, they're both kind of shitty. I'm leaning more towards the Atlanta Legends. I kind of like the purple helmet. I'm not a big fan of the crown on the helmet, but I'm not a big fan of the Apollos. I think the guy with the arrow is kind of stupid.
Yeah, I think your buddy down there who's actually on the roster who we're trying to talk to in the near future isn't going to appreciate that take, Pags.
Jerome, he'll get over it. He's my man. He's got to agree. Those uniforms suck.
Yeah, right. We're going to get him on, learn what it's like to be coached by former Heisman winner, college coach, NFL coach Steve Spurrier. So that'll be a good conversation for you guys to look forward to. And I know you took Atlanta, man, but the story there, if our listeners don't know, is that Michael Vick and Brad Childress were supposed to be on that coaching staff, and both of them bailed late.
There were a lot of ex-Eagles because my boy Jerome, he played for the Eagles when the Chip Kelly era. But also you had Aaron Murray, who didn't start, but he came in at the end of the game. And also Ed Reynolds. You remember our man Ed Reynolds?
Stanford guy.
Yeah, man. He played for Atlanta. He had 4 tackles. So then we went on to the Sunday games. We had the Memphis Express. Do you have any background on why the fuck they're called the Express?
Yes, actually, FedEx Express.
Oh!
FedEx is based in Memphis, baby. Da-da-da.
Oh, the Castaway movie, of course.
Very much so.
And then the Birmingham Iron. I think I had Birmingham Iron. It kind of reminds me of the Any Given Sunday jerseys, the Sharks. I'm a big fan of the silver and black.
Dude, that's exactly what I thought of when I saw them, too. I was like, what is this, the fucking movies?
I love it. I mean, I love, like, the no decals, just all black with some silver. Big fan of the Birmingham Iron.
Yeah, see, I'm a millennial. I'm going, give me something here. Like, you watched a movie and you said, yeah, those are our uniforms. Like, get out of here, man. I'm going Memphis Express. My man. Sarcastically, I say that, of course. But Christian Hackenberg fucking lighting it up. What was he, 3 for 12, 20 yards and a pick at halftime?
10 for 23.
Oh, yeah. So, hey, he turned it on after halftime. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Good God, he was awful.
Yeah, so outside of him, I'm taking the uniforms in the Memphis Express.
Oh, speaking of Eagles, we didn't touch on it during the San Antonio-San Diego game. So you see two of our former boys with picks, Devontae Bosby, who was awful for the Eagles this year, and Ron Brooks. You remember that name?
Yeah, two secondary guys.
Well.
Wow.
They both had picks in that game. Pretty amazing. We go into the final one, and if anyone picks the latter for jerseys, I don't know what you're looking at because their jerseys are terrible. We had the Salt Lake Stallions, not a huge fan of that name either, or the Arizona Hotshots. Some of these names suck. Who the fuck created these names?
Trying to be relevant locally, and it wasn't a great idea.
Gross. I think it's a no-brainer. Salt Lake Stallions. I like the blue. I like the kind of Oregon helmet with the feathers on the side, even though I don't know what that has to do with Stallions. But, hey.
Yeah, see, for me, that wasn't as obvious. I actually had them kind of both in the middle of the pack for all of them. To your point, though, I did have Salt Lake pulling it out, so we agree on two of them, and two of them we have a split jury, so to speak. So we'll get to the listeners to break those ties. But like we mentioned, we'll continue this kind of throughout the next couple episodes. We'll get into our semifinals on Friday, and then ultimately the Super Bowl of logos on next Monday or Tuesday's episode. So we want you guys to tune in, give us your thoughts, and stay tuned ultimately to who wins this most important matchup.
This is going to be interesting. I know how the XFL took the country by storm back in the day. I'm interested to see how this AAF perceives it once it gets into March Madness, once it gets into the NBA and NHL playoffs. Does it stay relevant? I don't know. For me, I would love football year-round, so we'll see. I hope it does work out.
Yeah, in March, it's definitely going to disappear during March Madness on the weekends. It's not going to compete with that. But the real question will be in April when it's weeks 9 and 10 of the season and then the playoffs. And the only thing is basketball's right before the playoffs, hockey's before the playoffs, and baseball just started. So they'll have some competition. But ultimately, I think it would be an option. You know, I'm thinking to myself, hey, if it's a Phillies day game and there's nothing on tonight, hell yeah, I'll fucking throw on the football game.
Oh, yeah, it gets a little warmer out. No, it's not right now, but eventually it's going to get warmer out, cooking out, having some people over, having some beers. What are we going to watch? Well, why not throw in some football?
Exactly right. But that's our 14th episode of the Too Close to Call cast. Once again, I appreciate Pags giving us his time here today and joining us on the episode. So,
good
Pags,
to be back.
Yeah, exactly. Why don't you let the listeners know where they can reach us?
You guys have heard it by now. Too Close to Call cast on Instagram, on Twitter. Hit us up, like our page, follow us, get in our comments, let us know what we can do differently, what we can change, what you guys like, what you dislike. We're here for you guys. We're on all your podcast platforms. Like us on Spotify. Give us a rating on iTunes. Subscribe to our page. We appreciate all you guys, and we hope you enjoy listening.
And as always, have yourself a fine week.
Later, guys.
Peace.